Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, we're going to have part 2. There's enough Jacob to do a part 2, 3, 4. Like I told you a couple of weeks ago, this is like a mini-series. But today we're going to pick up with a kind of where we left off. Just in a short review, Jacob was selfish. Jacob was a con. Remember, he's a liar. He's a manipulator and a deceiver. Kind of guy you want to go have lunch with today. Yeah, it's just he's just a real upstanding guy. Real upstanding guy. But yet, as I said a couple of weeks ago, when we refer to God, he's referred to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. There's hope for Jacob, and there's hope for you, and there's hope for me. There's always hope with God. There's always hope with God. You know, we talked about a couple of weeks ago the birth, how that he was grabbing Esau's foot and trying to get ahead. Then we talked about the worst deal in history, where Jacob traded a bowl of soup for the birthright, which was 2/3 of the father's ownings, land ownings and livestock and everything. Then there was that day that Isaac said, I'm going to bless you, Esau. And Mama heard, and Mama said, come on, Jacob, we got work to do. Your daddy's going to be blessing Esau, and it's deserving of you. And so Mama prepared the goat, and Mama dressed Jacob up to where he would be like Isaac, like Esau, because Esau was hairy, so they put the goat hair on him. And then Jacob goes in, lies, said, I'm Esau, gets the blessing. Esau comes back, says, Dad, I'm here for the blessing. Dad has to say, son, your brother got it, and there's not anything for you. Well, then Jacob gets a taste of his own medicine, because he goes off, and Uncle Laban, who is his mom's brother, sets him up and has 2 daughters. Well, Jacob liked one and better than the other, and she was like the second born. And Uncle Laban said, well, you work 7 years and you can marry my second daughter. Worked those 7 years. Laban said, it's not right for my oldest daughter, and so you need to take her. So he took her, and he worked 7 more. So he the trickster got tricked. And then we come back, and Jacob is a livestock thief, and he works up this con, and he gets ahead of his father-in-law uncle in the livestock. But we're going to move on, and we want to reflect back on God's love, how that even this con is blessed by God. We're going to look, and we're going to see how that we are never too far gone for God, because Jesus paid it all. And so Jesus is there to rescue us in whatever predicament we get in. And we need to realize that God never stops loving us. So as we go on, Jacob's gone, and he has children with Uncle Laban, and he has like 12 children. And now we read here where he has a dream. You may have heard where there was the stairway from heaven, and Jacob was there, and the angels came down. And now, here we go. I want you to look at this attitude that Jacob has. 28 verses 20 and 21. Look at the highlights. Then Jacob made his vow. if God will indeed be with me and protect me on this journey, and if He will provide me with the food and the clothing, and if I return safely to my Father's home, then the Lord certainly can be my God. How dare you talk to the God of heaven, the creator of the world, like that, and put conditions on God? Jacob's putting conditions on God. The question I have today is, are we putting conditions on God? You know, God, if you can help get me out of this situation, I'm there for you. I will do everything you want me to do. Just get me out of this mess. Or maybe, you can think of anything that may go on in your life where you've tried to make a deal with God. You've tried to make a deal with God. And so we see how that Jacob is out doing this vow. Yeah, I need water. I've got a cough drop and still coughing. Probably going to drink this water and still cough. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Who knew windmills needed water? So I want you to reflect back. Have you tried to make a deal with God? And how is it turning out? How is it turning out? So, as we progress into this chapter 32, there's an event happening. And we look, and Jacob was left alone. And a man wrestled with him until the break of the day. Now, when you look at the UFC, those guys have these, 5-minute rounds? And they beat each other half to death. And they may do 5-minute rounds. And when it's over, they look like they just wore slap out. Or if you're old school like me and you remember the Thriller in Manila, when they went 15 rounds in the heat, and they did, I think it's a 3-minute round, and they looked like they were wiped out. Jacob and this man went all night long. And I think sometimes we wrestle with God all the time. We are constantly wrestling with God, saying, but God. But God. Oh, come on, God. Let me do this, God. Why do you bless them and not bless me, God? And we just wrestle, and we wrestle, and we wrestle, and we want to know why. Well, I'm here to tell you, keep wrestling and do not get out of the struggle. Because when you leave the struggle and you give in to sin, and you allow sin to take over your life, then the devil has you where he wants you. So, they went all night long, and with him until the breaking of the day. When the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he touched his hip socket. And Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. Tell you what, that's a pretty slick move. Here he was, wrestling. He was in control. He was on the top. And then he touched that hip, and then out of socket it came. And Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. Then he said, let me go, for the day is broken. But Jacob said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. There he goes, trying to put these conditions on people again. And he said to him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." Then he said, "Your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel." Now think about this. Remember, Jacob means deceiver. And he said, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob, deceiver." Then he said, "Your name shall no longer be called deceiver, but Israel. For you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed." Let me tell you, there's something in a name. And when you come up out of that watery grave of baptism, your name is no longer Mark. Your name is Mark, Christian. And we need to own our name, Christian. We need to live like a Christian, because that's what God expects. So as we look back and we think about who we are, who we represent, because if you look back and we go here, look at this. You go back into Genesis 27 and we read this. So he went to his father and he said, "No, my father." And he said, "Here I am. Who are you, my son?" And Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done what you told me. Now sit up and eat my game, that is your soul may bless me." Now look, and he said down in 32 where we just read, and he said to him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." He owned his name. He didn't lie. He wasn't running a con. He's beginning to allow God to work on his life by turning him around and planting the seeds of hope in Jacob's heart. Now it takes time to change the way you live life. And if he's been living life as a con his whole life, it's going to take time to stop living life like a con. And so think about this. Jacob, for the first time, is confessing and saying, "I am Jacob." He's not trying to hide. He's not trying to hide. Then Jacob asked him, "Please tell me your name." But he said, "Why is it that you ask my name?" And then he blessed him. So Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, saying, "For I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been delivered." Confession is good for the soul. When we admit our wrongs, we are in a lot better shape than when we keep playing hide and seek with God. So think about that. Now, another thing we see here, as when Jacob was in the darkness, and we see in chapter 28:11, and he came to the certain place and stayed there that night because the sun had set. This is back when the stairway to heaven, and he was trying to run a deal with God and made this vow, taking one of the stones of that place and put it under his head and lay down a place to sleep. So the sun is set. He's in the darkness. Now look, he went through this 20 years of darkness with his uncle, working for all these wives and these kids and getting tricked. But look at 32:31. But the sun rose upon him as he passed in Peniel, limping because of his hip. I'm getting old, and my left leg bothers me a lot. I limp. It just aches. Every time Jacob's hip hurt, I bet he remembered that encounter with God, where God just touched that hip. And it might say, I better think about this. Sometimes we have reminders in our life. Some people, you may have been a daredevil as a child, and you may have a scar from your daredevil days. When I was a kid, it was try to get a bike and make this ramp, and we all thought we was going to be Evel Knievel. Man, I got scars on my knees where I thought I was Evel Knievel. And you may have some scars in your life where you were trying to live like the devil, and those scars remind you. And the hip reminds Jacob every morning when he gets up, he's walking like this. Got that limp. Why am I limping? Well, I did try to con God. I did try to box him in. You know, it's just overwhelming, the things that happen in our life where we struggle. But remember, we're all wrestling with something. We're all trying to outrun God. We need to wrestle with God. Because when we stop wrestling with God, we have given up on God's way. And we start wrestling with the world. Well, the world is going to show you no mercy. The world is awful. The world is vindictive. The world is corrupt. The world will destroy. But God will keep trying to help you see your way. You see, some people think about, well, you know, God is God. Why did he allow that to happen? Why didn't he just take him? Now I'm going to just reflect back here. I have little nephews and kids that have, when they were little, you kind of play wrestle with them, and you made them think that they were something, and you let them make them think they took you. Kind of interact and play, and built a relationship with that child. And God was building a relationship with Jacob in helping him understand who God is. And so, if you think back, that is what was happening here with Jacob, is he developed this relationship. And remember, at the end, it said he was delivered. Now, he's still got Esau that he's worried about. Because, you know, he has done a lot of things. And Esau had been known to say, I'm going to kill you. But look at chapter 33, first part. Then Jacob looked up and saw Esau coming with his 400 men. So Esau, big, strong, outdoors type, 400 men, probably the same types, and here they come. So Jacob divides his children among Leah, Rachel, and his 2 servant wives. And he put 1 servant wives and their children at the front, Leah and her children next, Rachel and ahead. And as they approached his brother, he bowed to the ground 7 times before him. He had already instructed his servants we're going to give my brother all of this livestock. There you go. He's trying to mend the past. But look at verse 4. Esau, the twin brother who had his foot grabbed, Esau, the twin brother who got tricked with a bowl of bean soup for the birthright, 2/3 of the property. Esau, the one who got tricked with the blessing from the father, he's got a lot of reason to want to kill Then Esau ran and met him and embraced him and threw his arms around his neck, kissed him, and they both wept. I'm here to say God has the ability to heal conflict of all levels. Here we have two twin brothers who have spent all of their life hating each other. And look what God did. And God can do it in our life, and God can do it in this city, and God can do it in this world. We have to go out and spread the good news of Jesus, because Jesus is the healing power that will heal this sin-sick world. It is amazing to see. Now, there are consequences to all kinds of sin. Unfortunately, the children of these brothers cannot get along. And you will read more. This is the same gang of brothers that throw Joseph in the pit. This is the same group that went to Egypt, and then Joseph forgive them. So this story is full of is a roller coaster ride of where people are sinning and people are trying to do better. And then they sin some more, and then they try to do better. And God, it's all part of that wrestling with God. Because when we stop wrestling with God, we're going to wrestle with the devil. And the devil's not going to be playful. The devil's going to cheat. The question I have for us today, I'm sorry, I forgot about these verses here. We're going to see how more of the difference happened in Genesis 35. Then Jacob told everyone in his household, "Get rid of all your pagan idols and purify yourself and put on clean clothing. We are all going to Bethel, where I will build my altar to the God who answered my prayers when I was in distress, and begin with me whatever I have gone." So they gave Jacob all their pagan idols, their earrings, and he buried them under the great tree near Shechem. And so as you look at what the change that Jacob had in his life, think about that change. And that change, he began to try to implement it with his family by getting them to bury the idols under the tree and to get them out of their sight. And we have to get the things that are standing between us and the Lord out of our life, out of our children's life, so that we can be closer to God. So that when we come up out of that watery grave, we can say, "My name is Christian." He that believes and is baptized will be saved. He that does not believe will be condemned. Will be condemned. And today, if we can help you come closer to God by becoming a part of God's family, we're here with open arms. If your life is broken and you need to come home to God, today is the day. If we can help you in any way, we ask you to come as we stand and sing.